One objection I've often encountered over my years as a talking head, and this is something that everyone in media hears ad nauseum, is that, I spend too much time focused on the negative. Why don't you ever talk about positive things, the objector asks. Why not spend time discussing encouraging and wholesome topics? That's what I really want to hear about. Now, the truth is that I do sometimes talk about positive things. I do, in fact, spend time on my show and on other platforms discussing more lighthearted and happier topics on occasion, at least lighthearted and happy to me. But the people who demand such content are nowhere to be seen once it's provided, okay? They don't say, hey, thanks for this, it's just what I asked for. Instead, they say nothing, because the truth is that they've probably changed the channel, they closed out the video, because the further truth is that they don't really want these more wholesome themes. They say they do, but when they get it, they're bored. That's part of the reason why you don't see more of the sort of cheerful and uplifting content that so many people pretend to want, but rarely support whenever they get it. But the other potential reason for a lack of such content is that when someone in the public light shares an encouraging thought or a happy moment with the public, it is nearly certain that he will be ripped to shreds by a million crazed vultures who seek to devour happiness like scavengers on roadkill. Now, the point here isn't just to whine and say, woe is me. There's a larger point I want to make, but case in point, consider the happy moment that I experienced and shared with the world and have talked a little bit about on the show late last week. The day after our twins were born, I announced the news on Twitter. And since I'm a dad of 6 now, I can't help but include an extremely lame dad joke in moments like this. It's a compulsion. And also, you might say, a solemn responsibility to ruin a profound moment with a corny joke. It's what we're supposed to do. So I tweeted, kids number 5 and 6 were born last night. The males in the family now outnumber the females 5-3. My master plan is complete. Mom and babies are healthy and doing well. Thank you for all your prayers. That's what I said. That's all I said. The totally hilarious joke about the boys outnumbering the girls and the bit about how I somehow planned this from the start is a version of a joke that approximately, 700,000 people have said to me whenever they find out that we're having 2 more boys. In fact, it's the sort of battle of the sexes type joke that families with boys and girls make all the time amongst each other. It's all very normal. But as we've seen, there is nothing that the internet hates more than normal, which is why this tweet announcing the birth of my children attracted hundreds of outraged responses. People outraged. So to be clear, these are people who are actively mad about a stranger announcing the birth of his children. That emotion, okay, outrage over a birth announcement, it's an emotion that a healthy human being has likely never felt. It's an emotion not even available to a healthy person. They wouldn't know how to generate that emotion if they wanted to. And yet many people who are apparently capable of experiencing such an emotion or who wish to pretend that they experience it made their voices heard. And I'm not going to go through and read them all. Just suffice it to say again, hundreds of people, comments, sending me messages, very upset. Wanting to, taking time, by the way. It's like I just had kids. It's like, to me, so here, it takes time to lecture me about, the manner in which I announce it, because I have time to really think about that. So I think this one tweet selected at random is a fairly representative of the whole. So this was the general tenor. A woman responded, imagine your twins being born and you tweet that your master plan of having more boys than girls in a family is finally complete. As the oldest of 5 girls, I am completely effing sick of men celebrating male babies as inherently more valuable. Very sorry for this man's daughters. I think it's also worth singling out this other response, one other, from a woman who pretends to be a reverend. Reverend Kim Chafee tweeted, and reverend in quotes, reverend in big air quotes there. Kim Chafee tweeted, it might be humorous were it not for his patriarchal history and attitude towards women. Not appropriate, not funny. By the way, this is a woman named Kim who responds to a joke like that by saying, not appropriate or funny. You already have in your mind an image of what this person looks like, and it's exactly that. You're exactly right. It's that person. And there were plenty more where these came from. And this is to say nothing of the people who took the time to publicly wish that my children turn out gay or trans. That was another big response. It's quite interesting, actually, that those who pretend to support gay and trans people are also the ones most likely to accuse you of being gay or trans as an insult, or to wish it on your children as a curse. Now, over the following week, I posted a few more times about the birth. Each time I was rebuked for one reason or another, and Always there followed many ill wishes to me and my family and my newborn sons. Most of this came from the left, but not all of it. For instance, in response to a picture of me simply sitting and holding the babies, is it? And I don't usually post pictures of my kids online, but they're infants and you can barely see them, so it's fine. But a YouTuber from the manosphere named Ryan Stone tweeted, "Showing off the F trophies for clout." F trophies like the F word, trophies. That's what I was, so the babies are trophies that I'm showing off for clout. He then went on a multi-tweet tirade complaining about men who take pictures with their own children. It's not manly, apparently. To love your kids is not, and be proud of them is not manly. It's perhaps not a surprise that a picture of a proud father would be so upsetting to the sort of man who clearly never had one. Now, all of this reached its apotheosis a few days ago when I answered a question about whether I'd be taking a long paternity leave. And I said in reply, and here I directly quote myself, I said, nope, I'll be back to work in a couple of days. That's what I said. That was it. I'll be back to work in a couple of days. End of statement. And yet, even that was offensive to some people, and not a small number. So here we can use this response as representative. One man said, "Matt, my man, I'm happy for you. For real, congratulations. Twins, a lot of work, a lot of fun. Good luck. You do know, I hope, that you could just be gracious and not dog whistle malign people who take paternity leave." Yes, to say when you're returning to work is to dog whistle malign men on paternity leave. You can't even say when you're coming back to work without offending people who are not coming back to work yet. This is ludicrous for many reasons, beginning with the fact that I don't need a dog whistle to malign anyone. If I want to do it, I'll do it openly. I think I've proved that, if nothing else, during my career. Now, you might listen to all this and say, okay, sure. Of course, this was the response you got. It's the internet. It's not real life. That's just how people are on the internet. Besides, the vast majority of people were encouraging and positive and congratulatory, and these trolls are in the minority. And on that latter point, I agree. Most people have been very supportive, sending their well wishes and prayers, and for that, as I said, I'm profoundly grateful. As to the former, I certainly do not agree. If many people are vicious and vile and insane on the internet, then they are, by definition, vicious and vile and insane in real life, because the internet is real life. It exists in reality. It is used by people in reality. So if you say something to somebody on the internet, you have said it to them in real life. This idea that it's some sort of dream or alternate dimension, it doesn't count, it doesn't make sense. It is a communication device. Saying the internet isn't real life, it's like writing an insult on a piece of paper and then handing it to someone and then telling them they have no right to be upset about it because you didn't insult them in real life, you only insulted them on the piece of paper. Relax, man, it's just a piece of paper. Now, it's certainly true that many of the trolls who say heinous things on the internet would never do it face to face. Nobody would come up to me in person and say, for example, "I hope your newborn children end up being trans." Nobody would do that. I'm out in public all the time, and nobody comes up to me and says anything like that to my face. Many have said it to me on the internet, never would say it to my face. That, however, doesn't make the statement any less real, and it also doesn't make it any better because it just makes them cowards on top of being perverts and degenerates and psychos. But let me get to my real point. And the real point isn't simply to just complain about people being mean and weird on the internet. Instead, this has been, I think, yet another opportunity to learn a very valuable lesson about the modern world, which is this, that many people hate happiness. And this is really what lies at the root of the psychotic backlash that I received for committing the sin of talking about my children in public. I'm a family man, and I'm happy in that role, and I'm proud of my family. That's why I talk about it. And that makes certain people very upset. Why? I mean, why do people get offended by that? Why get offended by happiness? Because they're deeply unhappy and miserable themselves, and they take your happiness as a personal affront. The adage about misery loving company is true, but I think it's important to understand why it's true. That this sort of miserable, selfish person has given up on striving for anything better in life. Instead, they try to attain happiness by using this kind of bell curve method. If they can drag everyone else down, if they can spread their misery around, then they'll have increased their own happiness in comparison to the average. It's like if you earn more money, you'll have made yourself richer. But if you earn the same amount while everyone else loses money, You'll have closed the gap between yourself and the richest person, thereby making yourself richer on average. Many people in our culture choose the latter approach, both metaphorically and also literally when it comes to money. Yet, of course, not all forms of happiness are equally as threatening to the miserable, selfish person. In fact, he'll be very encouraging to you if you are seeking pleasure in selfish pursuits, or if you're doing things that are materialistic or shallow or that aren't that meaningful, and you're happy about it, and you talk about how you're happy about it. These sorts of people, they'll be very encouraging of that. They're happy, okay? Because that is a non-threatening sort of happiness that you're experiencing. But this sort of person is especially offended by the happiness you derive from good, true, fulfilling things, from a life of service to your family. That's the most offensive kind of happiness to them. They hate that. They really hate it. That is the kind of happiness that this sort of person hates most of all, because he has told himself that sort of happiness is impossible. He's either childless and lonely, facing the prospect of dying alone and unloved, trying to convince himself that this is the preferable option, or he has a family, but his family is broken and poisoned by resentment, and his kids hate him, and his wife left him or whatever, or husband left him, if it's a man or woman, and just everything's in shambles. And they're trying to convince themselves that it's not their fault, that this is always how it ends up with families. All families end up this way. Well, your happiness in your family life interferes with this mental narrative, and so they will hate you for it. They're trying to lie to themselves, and you're getting in the way of the lie. And that's what lies at the root of all of this. And it's why these pathetic, miserable wretches, not to add insult to injury, not that they need anymore, but they are all canceled. And that'll do it for this portion of the show as we move over to the members block. Hope to see you there. If not, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Godspeed.